Hello. Hello and welcome, one and all. This is the very first webinar in a series of webinars introducing you to Green Minds, led by Plymouth City Council in partnership with Real Ideas, the University of Plymouth, Devon Wildlife Trust, the National Trust, Plymouth College of Arts, and the Data Place. It is funded by the European Regional Development Fund under their Urban Innovative Actions programme. Green Minds aims to put nature at the heart of our decision making, recognising its role in shaping a healthy future for us all. This means fundamentally challenging our existing attitudes and behaviours towards nature, how we think about it, how we engage with it, how we work with it. Can we rewild both people and places in Plymouth? And so it is fitting today to introduce you to the Rebel Botanists, a local Plymouth group whose mission it is to do whatever they can to connect people to nature in creative, edgy, and educational ways. My name is Eva McGrath. I am a social scientist in the Marine Biology Department at the University of Plymouth. My role within the Green Minds team is to understand and to evaluate how social values change over time, in particular in the coast and also in the parks around Plymouth. I've been working alongside the Rebel Botanists over the last few weeks, and so I am delighted to share a conversation with you today with three of their founding members, Liz Richmond, Charlotte Underwood, and Gay Jones. Before we begin, I'll just go through some of the more practical details. This webinar is being recorded and will be shared after the event. And so please do bear that in mind when you are asking questions. It would be great if you could introduce yourselves now using the chat function. The chat function is in the central panel of Zoom and it looks like a little speech bubble. We're going to be inviting you to ask your questions through the chat function too. Gemma Sharman, lead on Green Minds, will receive them and then ask them on your behalf. We'll have a limited time for questions and answers, but we are interested in them all, and I'm sure they will provoke further discussions. You will notice in the chat function that we have put in a couple of links. Please follow them in your own time, and also follow the Facebook site, Rebel Botanists Plymouth. Can I ask you, and just thank you for many of you keeping your microphones on mute, and could I ask that you can continue to do so to avoid any background disruptions. This is how it is going to work today. We have an hour together, and Liz, Charlotte, and Gay are first going to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll watch a recent BBC video which shows the Rebel Botanists in action in one of the Green Minds case sites, Central Park. Then Liz, Charlotte, and Gay will present the story of the Rebel Botanists. After that, there will be about 15 minutes for you to ask your questions and for further discussion. And so first, can I introduce you to Liz, Charlotte, and Gay? Liz, I'm going to ask them to briefly introduce themselves and to answer the question, when did you first actively start caring about the natural world? So should we go to you, Liz, first?
Okay, that's great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, by the way. This is really great. I remember at a really early age just watching Jacques Cousteau on TV. I mean, he was like my hero when I was a kid, and then, you know, watching Attenborough. So I think, you know, it's always been on my alert, you know, it's always been there. I think though being really active, it was in 99, I started a recycling company back then addressing toxic metals in the environment. I was passionate about that, did that for a good 12 years. And again, educating people about heavy metals in the environment through all different practices. So yeah, I've got quite a background in environmental protection, really. Yeah.
It's amazing how such a little spark can kind of really give you momentum as you go through. Charlotte, what about yourself?
Hi, yeah, hello to everybody. I've always really been interested in nature and loved being outdoors, even when I was a little kid. My mum always used to joke that my brother would never get his hands dirty, but I would do anything to get my hands dirty. Just loved getting them in mud. But I think I've always done quite a lot of conservation work over the years as well. So I did a little bit with more trees and with what used to be called BTCV and the Devon Wildlife Trust. But I think it probably wasn't, if I'm honest, until I watched the David Attenborough documentary, Blue Planet, where it really hit home with me some of the problems we're really facing at the moment. So fairly recently. And since then, obviously really got stuck into the Rebel Botanists and tried to make as many changes as I can in my own life. Yeah.
Incredible. I love the image of you being absolutely mud flaked as a kid.
Yeah,
and that's so
covered in mud now, actually.
Gay, what about you?
I think, like a lot of people, the natural world was, it's a bit like white noise in the background of my life, really. Parents, you know, took us out on country walks as kids and so on. And well, I'd say it informed my decision to become a vegetarian in my early 20s. That was very much about protecting the natural world, not eating animals, although of course I carried on eating plants. And then I was involved in various environmental campaigns and so on over the years in a small way. I think probably getting an allotment about 13 years back started to get things moving again. And then I was just thinking, probably what did as much as anything was a few years ago when the book The Lost Words came out, Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris. And I read an article by Robert Macfarlane before publication talking about what fired him up, which was discovering that the Oxford Children's Dictionary had got rid of lots of words in the latest edition, all of them to do with nature, and replaced them with things to do with tech and games and urban kind of words. And he was so horrified. He produced this book along with these glorious illustrations with Jackie Morris. And if I had my way, every child in the country would have a copy. And I think probably that's what nudged me into paying attention a bit more about how bad things have got. And so when we kind of evolved Rebel Botanists this year, it all fell into place.
Absolutely. And we're going to see a clip now of the Rebel Botanists in action. And they're really aiming to do exactly that. It's to identify plants in local parks and to share their English name and also the botanical name. And so I'm just going to share my screen now to give you a little flavour of what they get up to. And just to say that the original link of this, the BBC short clip, is in the chat function at the very top.
Well, there's a bit of perfume. Normally they smell amazing. Now, what sort of clover is that? The white clovers do as well. But we so often never get down on our hands and knees to smell these flowers, but a lot of them have wonderful perfume. That's what it's all about. It's raising the awareness and just looking and seeing what the different varieties of plants are here. So this is the pineapple weed. Plantain. I'm not sure which one that is. Go parsley, which is very, very common. Black medic. It can be quite exciting. So sometimes we've just kept going for hours because we just keep meaning to stop and get home and finish. But then you just keep seeing another thing, so you have to label it. The beginning of the lockdown, I happened to come across a French botanist, ecologist, I think, and he was
writing some Latin names of trees in Paris, I think. I thought, what a great idea. So I went out and I did it one afternoon. It seems that it's created a bit of a movement, which is fantastic. We're all just amateurs. So that's the rebellious bits. Sometimes we look at a plant and we don't know what it is. We're not foragers. So I wouldn't suggest going out eating things unless you really know what you're eating.
I think it's lovely. It's really interesting to see all the names of the plants, some that I didn't know and some that obviously I've been here for ages and I've been walking past them and I had no idea what I was looking at most of the time.
Just trot on a light.
They'll bounce back. It'll be fine.
Just stick it in the ground.
Helps like raise awareness about how important plants are, not just to us, but to insects as well, like bees.
So we chalk up and then, you know, a week later, maybe the rain comes and it's gone. And then we go out and then we think, oh, what was this called again? We're doing something which is really valuable to the planet. It's really valuable to people in terms of learning. And it's just, yeah, it's great fun to do.
So that gives a little flavour of the rebels in the parks, and maybe some of you, as you've been
They've popped up. Nobody's claimed responsibility.
Sorry, that went on to the next video. That was a little bit surreal, wasn't it? No, I was just saying that that video shows some of the rebels in action in parks around Plymouth. And now I'm going to invite Liz, Charlotte and Gay to share a little bit more about the story of how they've emerged in this presentation. I'm going to be sharing my screen as we do that. Over to you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep. Can you hear me okay? That's great. Lovely. Okay, so yeah, this is a picture that I've adapted a little bit to promote what we do. And as it says there, you know, we are a group of very passionate people who are rebels. We're not you know, highly qualified botanists in any shape or form. We've been on a learning curve since we've started this. But what we're really trying to emphasize is the importance of these little plants that you see, or sometimes that you don't see. Very often we don't see them because they're in the little verges, little cracks in the pavements. They're on the grass verges of walkways, and people just walk by them. And, you know, the average daisy, dandelion, knapweed, they're all really important plants to our ecosystem. But we kind of realize that, you know, they're just not being recognized. Next slide, please. So hopefully while that next slide's coming up, we started back in the lockdown, at the height of the lockdown, you know, in April. I think there's lots of ingredients to a cake, you know. If someone said to me what made me start, I think there's lots of things. But I was watching Chris Packham, the Self-Isolating Bird Club. I got really into birds, and and also I was watching reading a book called Overstory about trees. So basically I was going out into the parks in Plymouth, going for walks on my own, as we all were. And I was looking at trees, I was looking at birds, I was looking at the habitats, I was looking at the little plants in those areas, and I was really trying to make some connections there. And the amazing, beautiful silence of that spring is just something that, you know, unfortunately, we may never see the like of again. I mean, it was just incredible that the traffic stopped and all you could hear were trees, sort of the leaves whispering in the wind, and the birds. It was just incredible. For me, that completely moved me. The image on the right is a piece that I wrote for the Western Morning News, which really highlighted the key factor about nature. We can't return to business as usual is the name of the actual the story. And the idea was, it was to bring some kind of raise awareness to people that, hey, look around you, look at this amazing quietness that we're experiencing, and look how you can engage with nature. And as you've heard, you know, all three of us were really passionate about nature. But I think when the kind of world stopped as such, it gave me the opportunity to engage as much as I wanted to, because obviously, you know, I'm working full time. And although I do lots of things in my spare time, it suddenly meant that I could really connect with nature. And that's what I was doing. So I was going out taking these pictures of trees and weird angles and stuff like that. So yeah. Next slide, please, Eva. So in terms of writing the piece for the Western Morning News, as you can see there, I think that was the start of me being a bit passionate and wanting to really do something more to protect nature and allow that connection to live on and to engage other people. So then I started doing things at home. So these are, if you probably recognize them, they're the cartons of organic tomatoes that come from Sainsbury's. And there are other supermarkets that obviously sell organic tomatoes. But so I was out in my garden, I was painting all these little things about pesticides. You know, I hate pesticides. They kill, people use them to kill weeds, and I hate that word weeds. But it's not just the plants that they're affecting all the life that feeds on that, you know, on those plants as habitat. So I was doing stuff about pesticides. I was trying to prevent people from mowing their lawns in a nice sort of educational way. So I was doing all these activities. So it was a real build up to then the realization of then, you know, moving on with this. Next slide, please. So as you can see, there's clear messages there that are trying to, you know, raise awareness and to educate people. You know, if you're not using pesticides, you have happy wildlife. You know, it's living. I've used this particular image at the beginning of the Rebel Botanists because when we started this is really funny. I mean, obviously the daisy is just a really representative of the work that we do, because we're trying to defend those little guys, you know, those little flowers that you see every day that people just walk past and don't recognize. And the daisy is really symbolic of this. And it's also the first Latin word that as a group we all remembered, Bellis perennis, and we laugh about it now. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's just you know, really important. And the thing about writing the name, it obviously gives that little flower some recognition. So people stop and they look, and then, you know, adding the Latin is something else for them to think about. And by doing what we do, we're opening that door of curiosity. So we never go up to people. We never thrust this down anybody's throat and say, oh, you know, you must do this and you must do that. There's a lot of activism going on in this world at the moment. And so, you know, the approach that we wanted to have was a little bit different. We wanted to engage people so that they asked us, you know, and I think if you open that door of curiosity and people start looking and photographing and then checking on their phones and thinking, oh, what is this? You know, what's this all about? You then, you know, you've got them, you know, in the nicest way, they're hooked. And then in learning about these little simple flowers, they learn more. That will be a natural effect. You'll learn. And also, you know, we write messages to say the different types of wildlife that feed or, you know, habituate off that particular plant or whatever. So for like ivy is a really, you know, a really good example that people pull ivy off trees and walls thinking that it's going to suffocate and choke it and all this kind of stuff. And actually, no, you know, an ivy will work with the tree and it offers so much valuable habitat, especially now in the winter. So really putting across this message about all these very simple plants is just so important to us. Next slide, please. So really how we see ourselves as passionate protectors of plants is that, you know, we kind of like, you know, we're doing a bit of street graffiti here. So it's, when we started this, it's a little bit edgy, isn't it? Because there is that possibility, as we've been told, that we could have been I don't know, fined or something, you know. I think there's a £2,000 fine for graffitiing. So So one thing that is really important in our work is that we don't do this with permanent markers. It's all chalk. And I think that's a great thing, because obviously, you know, we won't get arrested, thank God. And especially now the council have supported us in this, I think, oh, thank God for that. But one, it's chalk, but also it's good because the chalk will get rained on and it will go away and it will no longer be there. And then we can go out and we can do it all over again. And that's great because it always gives us a new sort of fresh place to go out and do this again. But also, if the messages that we were putting on the pavements and the walkways stayed there permanently, well, eventually, I think people would then begin to not notice those as well. Whereas, you know, because our art, our street art becomes new each time, people stop and look and they stop and look. So it's a very kind of dynamic kind of street graffiti. It's always changing, and that kind of links to the things that we're naming, because those flowers, those little wild flowers and plants, they're always changing. You know, in the spring and the summer, people notice them because they're, you know, they may have, you know, beautiful color flowers, and then during the winter they just turn to some green leaf. Well, actually, it's not just a green leaf. They're all different shapes and sizes, and they all do very different things, and they, you know, they support a myriad of different wildlife, and this is quite a complex thing. And I think all my you know, Gay and Charlotte will agree with me. When we started this, you know, we kind of went out and we probably put things like oak, you know, and daisy and dandelion. That's you know, and then it's like, oh my God, there's like so many different species of all these things. So it becomes very much more complex. And with that complexity of the different species is also the you know, in terms of where those species are, in terms of locality, they will provide food or shelter for very specific wildlife in that area as well. So it's a very complex game, and we are continuing to learn. So if you do, please look on our Facebook site. You know, don't think that we have all the answers, because we don't. we're always learning. The image on the left-hand side there, I lived, I breathed like you, is obviously in recognition of, you know, for me, I do love trees. You know, people often just, you know, may look at a tree and think how beautiful that tree is, but it just gives us so much more than just being a visual, beautiful thing to look at. You know, it does provide us oxygen. We need every single tree. And I'm sure, as you probably know about all these ancient woodlands that are being chopped down. You know, that's something that's really affecting me quite badly, because it's just, not only are these trees that give us oxygen, but each of those trees support hundreds sometimes of different species of wildlife, and they're all integral to us. So, you know, that's why Rebel Botanists is a really important thing for me. What else could I say? Well, the image on the right is a silhouette of me. And that's just significant because, you know, I started out on my own. And then very quickly I was joined by Gay, and then I was joined by Charlotte. So we see us as the, you know, the founders of this sort of movement. And I think when we did this, we were really passionate. We love what we're doing, and we love it now. And to see this movement take off so much that people, you know, we've now got a Facebook page, and the number of followers is increasing every day. I'm looking at it, and it's just fantastic. Some of our posts are reaching over 11,000 people. You know, I never imagined this would happen at the beginning. Never did. I think at the very beginning I did it for me to learn, because, as you know, if you bring in all of your senses and all your strategies and the way to learn things, you know, I was watching things, I was reading things, but then going out and then identifying them, you know, outdoors, it adds a really big, richer dimension to your learning. And obviously now then to be able to relay that onto other people, I think is so very important. So that image of just being me, and now seeing how the movement has grown already in kind of less than sort of 6 months, really, that image means that anybody can do this, absolutely anybody. So, you know, you don't have to join the Plymouth Rebel Botanists, but please do come along, because we would love to see you. We need some more people, but you know, anybody in any place can do this. So whether you're in Totnes or Edinburgh or Tokyo or wherever you are, do it. Just get out and do it on your own, and then get a friend to come along, and then another friend, and then it just gets to be really good fun. And it's fantastic for mental health and well-being. You know, you're not only learning yourself, but it's just a really good experience. And you may think, well, we're coming into winter now, so it's going to be raining and I'd rather stay home by the fire. But what's better than going out and getting a little bit wet in the woods? You know, what's better than going out, identifying things and looking at wildlife, you know, appreciating where does the wildlife go in the winter? You know, ask yourself that question and go out and learn about it. You know, and if you want any more tips about what we're doing in the winter, then obviously, you know, check our website, but we're going to be doing lots of different things in the winter. So that single silhouette image means that any one of you can do it, because we didn't know very much in the beginning and we're learning. So with that, I'm going to pass this on to Gay to tell you a bit more about how we do what we do. Thank you very much.
Hello. Well, this slide gives you some idea of some of the things that we use to help us. The first time that we went out, or the first time that I went out, and I just read an article in the paper about the French people who were doing this, and it sounded like a really fun idea. And I remember at the end of the afternoon, I thought, I've had more fun this afternoon than I can remember for a long time. So there was something about the fact there was a lot in it for me, for us, learning new things. The problem has been trying to remember them. And the initial problem, of course, was actually finding out what they were. Because I remember walking down an alley towards Central Park, and it was April, flowers coming up all over the alleys. And this back alley was just full of these flowers and plants. And I thought, I can put a name probably to about 4 of them, but there's dozens of them here. So, oh dear. So anyway, the next week, we came loaded with a book, and we started to download apps as well. And one of the things that we found out that relates to this since then is about something called plant blindness. Some of you, I'm sure, will know about this, but we'd never heard of it before, but it's a real thing. And a couple of US academic biologists, I think, coined the term back in about 1998. And it means, if I can just find it, it is, sorry, I'm just trying to find the actual words. Basically, it's the fact that it's the inability to see or notice the plants in one's own environment. And the people who coined the term traced this back to the fact that back in the day, many, many centuries ago, when people were hunter-gatherers and so on, we were programmed to notice things that moved, particularly because they could be dangerous or we might be able to eat them. Plants weren't any kind of threat. And researchers indicated that if people look at slides, images of plants as opposed to animals, we relate to animals, particularly, of course, animals that look sort of remotely like us, you know, forward-facing eyes and so on. Plants, we simply don't notice, they're part of the background. And this is actually really, really worrying, because plants are just so enormously important. They literally are the bottom of the food chain. And they have enormous importance in terms of the fact that it's plants, trees included, that capture the energy from the sun and then feed the insects, which feed the larger animals and birds and so on, right up the food chain. And they have huge medicinal properties as well, which we should do well to remember. So we realized that part of our issue is to try and work out how to interest other people, how to stimulate people to start noticing, because once we started to notice the plants around us, we found we couldn't stop. But anyway, we found there was access to lots and lots of books. There's some excellent books around. I think initially I went out, I found my mother's old copy of Keble Martin, which is like the granddaddy of flora. W. Keble Martin was a vicar who spent most of his life in Devon, in fact, and over 60 years. He's a wonderful artist. He compiled his British Flora, which is still in print 55 years after it was published. And it's full of his beautiful, totally accurate paintings of so many flowers. But there's a lot more contemporary books which tell you how to recognize flowers, how to look at them, to look at the leaves, the stems, to get some idea of the differences. And then now, because of the times that we live in, we have apps as well. And there are quite a lot of apps out there. The one we tend to use most is Seek by iNaturalist, which is really a citizen app. It was started by University of California and in conjunction with the National Geographic Society. It's a work in progress. They've got nearly 1.5 million users, and they're compiling the information as they go along, essentially. So it isn't completely accurate. It can be quite frustrating, a bit slow sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily give you the absolute correct answer either. But it is pretty good, and it's well worth downloading. It is free. So we can certainly recommend that, and children would relate to that particularly well, I think. And it's been a godsend to us. It really has. But the books as well, I was a bookseller, and I just love being able to turn to books to fill in the gaps, tell us what families the flowers belong to, the Latin names, and a lot of the qualities and so on. And I think one of the first things that occurred to me when we started to do it was that there are lots and lots of flowers that look like dandelions. And I discovered that they weren't dandelions. Well, I knew they weren't because they obviously didn't look quite like dandelions, but there were all sorts of, what have we got? Oh, my mind has gone a complete blank. Autumnal hawkbit, cat's ear, goat's beard, hawkbeard, hawk's nipplewort, and all the sow thistle family. It's utterly confusing, and I did set my mind to try and learn what this family was composed of, but it turned out that hawkweed, for example, there's over 300 species alone in this country, so I'm really up against it. But it's been tremendously stimulating and fun, and I think that's why it's appealed to so many people. So much protest feels negative and challenging and scares people, and I think we found something which excites and appeals to people and makes them feel happy about the world that we live in. So I think this is where we're up to. We've discovered Plymouth has got so many green spaces. It's really exciting. The flowers change when we're down on the Hoe. Down Mount Wise and West Hoe have got a lot of marine specimens, which we really didn't know anything at all about. So it's been wonderfully stimulating, and I can recommend it. I think every neighbourhood should have people who go out and chalk on pavements. So I think it's Charlotte's turn now.
Thanks very much, Gay. Yes, if you wouldn't mind going on to the next, back a slide, please, Eva. Thank you. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about what's next, really. So as Liz mentioned, we set up a Facebook page, which is being very popular and is doing a good job of letting people know what we're doing. It's been absolutely brilliant to see how many people are engaging with that, and we'll continue to do that and continue to hope that that grows. It would be lovely if more people would start to do some rebel botanying in their areas and could perhaps share with us some of the things that they're doing, perhaps sending us photos and things like that. That would be brilliant. Perhaps get a few more people out to join us and to actually come on some of our walks as well as doing some of their own walks. So we really hope to keep that growing. The media coverage that we've had recently as well has definitely helped, I think, to raise awareness. We also, next slide please, Eva. We fairly recently did a community wildflower walk. So on this walk, we didn't do any chalking. We just invited people to come along and to explore Ford Park Cemetery in Plymouth with us. Luckily, we got it in just before the rule of 6 came in, literally the day before. So we had a group of about 20, 25 people, which was lovely. And we just wandered around and used the apps and the books to identify some of the many wildflowers there. I mean, we must have seen well over 50 different species in Ford Park Cemetery. It's a really amazing place for wildflowers. And we're hoping to do some more of those again soon. So we'll go back to Ford Park Cemetery in the spring, and just to compare what it's like in the spring compared to the autumn. And I've got a few other places in mind that we'd like to go to as well. So some of the places I regularly walk at, places like Ernesettle Creek and Efford Marsh in Plymouth, which are lovely places that have got some really beautiful wildflower meadows or wildflowers growing alongside. So we'd like to do some more of those soon. We're hopefully going to do another community walk in November, I believe. So have a look at our Facebook page for that. Not 100% organised yet, but keep an eye out. Next slide, please, Eva. We've also been getting involved a little bit with a couple of local parks. So Moorview Park in Mutley is a really small little pocket park. We did go there and do a bit of chalking. And it's been a little bit neglected recently, mostly because of lockdown, I think. But a really brilliant group of, I think they call themselves the Young Ambassadors, are taking it on board, and they're going to do a lot of improvements there. So we have said that we will come along and help and advise and just encourage them to really think about wildlife when they're making these improvements. So we've got a potential date in the diary. Again, it's not 100% confirmed, so keep looking at the Facebook page. But we're going to go in a couple of weeks and just advise them on what they could maybe plant, maybe get some plants in the ground, get some seeds down, and also really talk to them about when they're weeding, that they don't need to just go in and pull everything up, that actually a lot of the things that they might think are weeds are actually really valuable for wildlife. Obviously, trying to keep some of the native flora and fauna that we've got in this area is really important, and really looking at what's there is really, really important. We've also taken on another little project at a place called Hounderscombe Park, which is also near Mutley in Plymouth. And we're, with the support of the council and the Green Minds project, we are planting that up and improving it for wildlife. And we're hoping to use that really as a place, not only as a little wildlife hub, not only to reintroduce some wildflowers and improve it for wildlife. So we'll also be putting things like bird boxes, and we've put up bird feeders and those kind of things, log piles. We're also hoping to use it as a bit of an educational gateway, so an area where we can perhaps use some art, and in the future, once lockdown is over, do some community events that really help spread the word and raise awareness of these wildflowers that are so important to us. Thank you. Next slide, please. That's Hounderscombe there, where we're putting in a few, I think we're putting in some bluebell and snowdrop bulbs there. And there we were at the end of the day, very, very tired. Next slide, please, Eva. So yeah, finally, our sort of, although we are going to continue with those projects, and we want to do more wildflower walks, and we'll continue to do the chalking and all these things, really what we really, really want is for other people to start doing it where they are. So either across Plymouth, in their own localities, in other cities, in other countries. The more people that can do this, the better. And it's such a simple thing to do. All you need to do is pick up a chalk, walk outside your front door, and there will be plants there. Wherever you are, even if you're in the middle of the city, there will be plants there. And if everybody that was interested went out and did that, just maybe once a week, it would have a massive, massive impact. So please do keep following us. Please have a look at us on Facebook. There's our email address there. You can see if you want to email us with any queries. But please do set up your own little group and get chalking. That's it. Thank you. Back to you, Eva.
Thank you very much. I'm really sorry, but my video has stopped. And so I'll pass on straight over to you, Gemma. We have about 10 minutes for questions.
Great. Well, I'm just picking up on some of the comments in the thread already, that there are some immediate questions in terms of obviously you've got your Facebook page that people can join in and like and find out what's going on. Are there any other ways that you can, and how to get involved? A few people asked if you have regular days, or is it just basically following you on Facebook and seeing when you might be active, or are there any more structure than that?
Shall I respond to that one? Okay,
yeah,
so yeah, the Facebook page is really really up to date. It's got all of our events on, so that's a really good way to link with us, and we respond pretty quickly between the three of us. So we're pretty good. We've got the email if you want any direct inquiries. There will be a website coming up hopefully quite soon. But in terms of the events and whatever, the Facebook page, that will be the one where people can sort of look and see what we're doing.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And just following on that, there's already people just saying, oh, I really want to do this in my area, in my park, in the city centre. Gia and Iris and B and John was asking how we could get involved. So again, is it just best all of that generated through your Facebook page? Or have you got any other kind of tips for them? Obviously you've shared some of your resources today, but is it best just to come along and join in with you and then see what you do, and then they could maybe take it back to their own park?
Yeah, I mean, they can come along with us. Definitely they can come along. They're really, really, really welcome to come along with us. That's great. But if they want to just do it on their own, that's cool as well. You know, and like Charlotte said, if they do something, you know, just send us a photograph, send us what they've done, because we really want to push people to do this off their own backs. This is a beautiful dynamic movement that we want everybody doing. So if you do something, even if you think it's a rubbish picture, just send it to us, because that's really important.
Yeah, I really like that you are something about this sort of noticing this nature in between. Someone put a comment, I think it might have been Gia, about that connecting the kind of nature in an urban environment, that city environment. And I really like the way it draws your attention to things that you wouldn't normally notice, which I think is really exciting. There's another comment, there's an interesting one here from Adrian in Saltash, and he is asking if you persuaded the council to reduce mowing and whether you've had any awkward customers. Which I think is interesting, because yeah, it's something that comes up, isn't it? Like you said, as you're chalking the streets, do you have that negative reaction?
Well, interesting you say that, because one of the first things we did when we started Rebel Botanists is we all said to each other, we really want to focus on being positive, and because I think sometimes there is a lot of negativity around problems that we're having with the environment at the moment, and it is a really serious issue. But if you're very negative all the time, you can often lose people's interest. So we really wanted to focus on the positive. And so one of the first things we did is a lot of us wrote to the council with positive messages saying how pleased we were that actually they're doing a lot less mowing at the moment and they are making positive changes. And hopefully, you know, if a lot of people do that, that will, I think, probably have more impact than people complaining and saying, oh, I don't like this. And so, yeah, we do try and focus on the positive. And when we've been out walking and we've been doing our Rebel Botany and chalking, I can honestly say I don't think we've ever had any negative feedback from anybody. I think everybody has been really positive. People have been quite happy to come up and chat and ask us what we're doing, which is why I think it works, because, you know, we're not having a go. We're not saying to people, you must do this, you must do that. We're just trying to engage people. So I think it does work in that way. So yeah, no, everybody's been very positive, actually.
I think actually on the note about the council, I think that those positive comments and feeding them back are really important, because as a local authority, you generally hear from people with complaints. So it's very hard if people say, oh, my grass isn't looking tidy, it needs to be cut. If there's no sort of counterbalance to that, that people actually really may be enjoying having more wildflowers about this year, then it's great that you share that with them and kind of raise that profile, because that's really important. And we do everything we can to kind of share those kind of comments as well. So I think that's partly what you're doing is really helping challenge people's perceptions of what natural spaces should look like, what green spaces should look like. So I think it's really exciting as well. So there's a couple of other comments about resources. Actually, I think people are really keen to have the resources shared. So some of the books you talked about, are they also available, those sort of tips and tricks on your Facebook page? No.
Yes, I mean, they're available in shops, online, whatever, please not Amazon. But yes, apart from the Keble Martin that I mentioned, I've got a Collins Wildflowers of Britain and Europe, which is wonderful, and Kingfisher, The Easy Way to Wildflower Recognition. There's a very good one called Harrop's Flowers by Simon Harrop, not Harrop the publisher, which is a cracker. Liz Swears by oh yes, the RSPB Garden Wildlife, which is excellent. They all have a lot to recommend them. You know, so if you can find something in a charity shop, and I'm sure you probably would be able to, yeah, get hold of something. It'll be a really good start.
It's great.
And as I say, the CCAP, or all the apps that we've downloaded between us are free. There's one called Candide, one called Flora Incognita. And Picture This, that's another one. So yes, there's a lot of free or very cheap resources out there, and they really do help. We found them hugely useful. They don't answer all the questions. We have to learn quite a lot from experience, and also talking to each other, checking out with each other, because that makes a huge difference, you know, discussing whether that is actually got a prickly leaf or is it a smooth leaf, what sort of stem it is, etc., etc. So yes, all of those things.
That's great. I just had another comment actually from Gia, and you did touch on this, Liz, actually, about not being foragers, and there was a comment about, are there any plans to label plants as edibles, or do you feel that's kind of a step too far at the moment, becomes a bit risky?
No, I think there are foragers out there. We're not stepping on their toes. They've got their job to do, and we've got our job to do. So our focus is raising awareness of those lovely little wild plants that are so significant to our ecosystem. That's our focus.
Grand, thank you. And Eva, you've got a question here about encouraging people who don't want to walk to their parks care about nature, and how Rebel Botany might fit with that. Did you want to just expand on that a little bit? I wasn't quite sure.
Yeah, it just strikes me, I think it's really important to think about what the barriers are in terms of access to nature. I think it would be fair to say that you three have all had really positive experiences from childhood, seeing documentaries, and there's been a flick that has turned you into activism. But how would you go about talking to someone who just doesn't care? Or there are other barriers that actually makes them not want to look? How would we try and overcome those?
You want me to respond? I'm a teacher when I'm not doing Rebel Botanists, so it's the same kind of similar thing. And I come across young people, you know, up to in their 40s even, who are living on council estates. They don't have their own gardens. They've had a hard life. They haven't had the engagement with nature and things that we have. We've been lucky enough to have. And I think what you need to do is introduce something to them that will show a benefit. So, for example, one lad that I work with, I can't remember, because I teach art, and we did do I have a little plant. Well, I have several plants in my room actually, but I allowed him to be responsible for my plant that I love, and he took control of watering it and checking every day when he came in, and that was the start. That was the start of it. And then I got him into thinking about, you know, he was saying about how his family couldn't afford food sometimes, So then I said to him, well, okay. So then we looked at growing potatoes and tomatoes. And then I got him to draw them as well, because obviously I've got to embed it in my art. So, you know, those little simple steps to show the relevance and how wild plants can actually, you know, we're all part of the same system. We can't live without these plants. So if you make the link, if you show the connection and the value to that person, that will help bring them on board.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Liz. I haven't had any new questions posted. I think I've covered all the ones that have been raised. Has anybody else got any other questions? Oh, hello. What would they like? No. Any other questions? Are we all done? I think that's it, Eva. I haven't got on track anymore.
Yeah, in the process of you sharing thoughts, I'm really sorry that my video is not working. I jotted down some just words that emerged. So I think might be quite interesting just as a summary. Naming as recognition, lost words, connections, people noticing, being a vegetarian, silence, birds, photographing, questions, getting involved, being hooked and blooming in that, sharing, resistant to weeds, creativity emerging from crisis, complexity, mental health and well-being, experience and experimentation, awareness, plant blindness, follow, get out, change in the locations, how to stimulate, educational, comparing in the seasons. And I just think that those words altogether shows actually the value of being surrounded in nature, of listening to the trees, of the leaves, of getting involved, as Charlotte was saying, and being muddy. And in actual fact, you know, this is not in a park in the wilderness, in the countryside. This is in the streets, of looking at the verges. And I think that this presentation tonight, I really hope that it is an inspiration for others to take that ownership, as Liz said, to give someone the gift of watering a plant and growing your own things and realizing actually the real agency, and in so doing, connecting. Thank you so much for all of your time this evening. I just urge you to continue following the Rebel Botanists in Plymouth and participate yourself in noticing nature on your doorstep, and to say that this is for all ages, from the very young to the very old and everything in between. And actually a lot of this is free resources, and you can be creative in that. To say that there are several more Green Minds events this week, and it would be great to see you there. So Hayley is just popping on the links in the chat function. So I would encourage you to sign up. You're not too late to hear about the beavers and to hear about all the changes and new ways of thinking in regard to nature that are going on right here in the city of Plymouth. If you are technologically minded, you can use the hashtag Green Minds Plymouth to share your experiences of today. And a recording of this event will be circulated in the next few days, and there will also be a post-event evaluation form. We would be really grateful if you could take the time to fill that in. And so could we just have a massive round of applause, really, and a really big thanks for the time of Liz, Charlotte and Gay, for sharing your knowledge and for inspiring us. Thank you so much, all. Yeah, all the best, and take care and get involved. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for having us, Eva. Thank you everyone for coming and listening.